Berlin, 1910. A young man wanders the streets with nothing but a battered portfolio of sketches clutched under his arm. Adolf Hitler, at 21, has no family, no income, and no prospects. Homeless shelters are his only refuge, and the cobbled streets of Vienna are his canvas and his prison. He sells postcards of cityscapes, landscapes, and the occasional crude sketch to anyone willing to pay a few pfennigs. Life is a grind, a daily struggle for survival, each day a delicate negotiation between hunger and exposure. Yet even in these dire circumstances, Hitler's obsession with order, with grand visions, begins to germinate. The small earnings from postcards are barely enough to buy bread, but he dreams bigger. He dreams of creating, of being recognized, of wielding influence far beyond the walls of his tiny attic room. Every rejection from the art academies deepens a sense of resentment, a belief that the world is unfair and that the ordinary rules of life do not apply to those destined for greatness. By 1913, Hitler has scraped together enough to travel to Munich. Germany is still reeling from the aftershocks of political turmoil and the looming specter of war. Here, Hitler continues to sell postcards, sketches, and watercolors, eking out a living while nurturing a mind increasingly fixated on grand narratives and historical destiny. Every coin earned is not just survival, it is a stepping stone toward a vision he cannot yet articulate. World War I changes everything. Hitler enlists, serving as a messenger in the Bavarian army. Wounds and medals follow, but so does an awakening to the power of propaganda, organization, and influence. The small, impoverished artist begins to see the blueprint for power, manipulate perception, exploit fear, and consolidate control. Each battlefield encounter, each political pamphlet read, each interaction with commanding officers is a lesson in influence and hierarchy. After the war, Germany is in chaos. The Treaty of Versailles has stripped the nation of pride and resources. Hyperinflation erodes savings overnight. In the midst of this turmoil, Hitler's skills as an orator and organizer begin to manifest. He joins the German Workers' Party, and soon the National Socialist German Workers' Party, Nazism, becomes his stage. The young man who once sold postcards to feed himself now speaks to hundreds, then thousands, drawing attention and followers through fiery rhetoric and promises of renewal. By the early 1920s, Hitler recognizes the necessity of financing his ambitions. Politics is expensive. Rallies, posters, uniforms, and pamphlets cost money. Here begins his transformation from struggling artist to financial tactician. He exploits sympathetic industrialists, leverages donations from wealthy backers, and begins the careful cultivation of a public image designed to attract resources. The stakes are high, but so is his ambition. The turning point comes in 1925 with the publication of Mein Kampf. Hitler had spent 2 years in Landsberg prison, reflecting, plotting, and drafting a manifesto that was part autobiography, part political doctrine. But it was also an unexpected financial windfall. While few at first recognized the book's significance, copies began to sell steadily, providing the young politician with an income far beyond his previous earnings. Publishers saw potential, and Hitler himself negotiated contracts that would ensure royalties for years to come. The book is both shield and sword, propaganda and profit intertwined. With these funds, Hitler invests in appearances. Lavish rallies, meticulously staged photographs, and the acquisition of prime real estate signal that he is no longer a man of mere words, but a man of influence and means. He understands that money is not just wealth, it is authority, visibility, and the capacity to command. By the late 1920s, Hitler's net worth, modest by today's standards, is already beginning to accumulate, laying the foundation for the fortune that will one day reach the unimaginable billions in Reichsmarks. Yet, the story is not just one of financial acumen. Hitler is a master of perception. Every gift accepted, every donation received is a piece of a carefully constructed persona. The lines between ideology and personal enrichment blur. Industrialists like Fritz Thyssen, Emil Kierdorf, and others become both patrons and instruments, unwittingly feeding a financial engine designed to propel Hitler into absolute power. By 1930, Hitler's finances are no longer dependent on small donations or book sales alone. The Nazi Party has begun to tap into deeper reservoirs: corporate support, strategic partnerships, and secret bank accounts. Money flows from Germany, Switzerland, and even foreign sympathizers who see the rising star as a future guarantor of stability or profit. Hitler's approach to wealth is almost surgical. He keeps meticulous records, ensures that assets are protected through a network of intermediaries, and begins moving significant sums into offshore accounts, anticipating the instability of both his nation and the global economy. Luxury begins to intertwine with power. A modest apartment in Munich gives way to larger residences, lavish furnishings, and expensive personal items, all funded by donations ostensibly intended for political purposes. Hitler's personal fortune grows in tandem with his political influence, a symbiotic relationship that few at the time fully comprehend. And yet, even as he amasses wealth, Hitler maintains the image of the everyman, the soldier returned from the trenches, the visionary leader struggling against the odds. By the early 1930s, the unthinkable becomes reality. Hitler's financial portfolio, carefully constructed over years of strategic accumulation, is now robust enough to sustain the rise of the Nazi Party into the corridors of power. Industrialists, bankers, and party officials all contribute to a growing empire of money, land, and influence. Meanwhile, the man who once slept in shelters now oversees a network of resources capable of shaping a nation and, eventually, the world. Hitler's transformation is complete. The failed artist is now the architect of a fortune, hidden yet enormous, his wealth a silent partner in the rise of tyranny. And yet, by 1945, as bombs fall and Berlin burns, this same fortune will face an uncertain fate. By the mid-1930s, Hitler is no longer the man who once sold postcards on Vienna's streets. His personal wealth has grown alongside the Nazi Party's rise, and the scale of his financial operations becomes staggering. Luxury is no longer an indulgence, it is a tool. Every villa, every custom-made uniform, every ornate car is a statement, a testament to both power and personal fortune. Yet behind the opulence lies a shadowy network of hidden assets, designed to safeguard wealth against political upheaval and global conflict. Switzerland emerges as a central node in this network. The country's strict banking secrecy laws and stable financial system make it a magnet for Nazi funds. Millions of Reichsmarks flow into Swiss accounts through intermediaries, shell companies, and discreet transfers orchestrated by trusted confidants. Deutsche Bank, Reichsbank officials, and various party loyalists facilitate these transactions, ensuring that Hitler's fortune is insulated from domestic instability and wartime disruption. The scale is almost unimaginable. By 1939, analysts estimate that Hitler's personal fortune exceeds 700 million Reichsmarks, equivalent to over $5 billion today. This includes not only cash reserves, but also properties, art collections, gold reserves, and stakes in industrial enterprises. Every aspect of the German economy touched by the Nazis becomes a potential source of personal enrichment. Factories, mines, and infrastructure projects are subtly leveraged to fund his lifestyle and expand his hidden treasury. The methods of accumulation are precise and ruthless. Businesses sympathetic to the regime are encouraged to contribute donations, ostensibly for party operations, but a significant portion flows directly to Hitler's personal accounts. Tax loopholes, secret deductions, and preferential treatment ensure that little is left exposed to oversight. It is a financial machine operating in parallel to the political machinery, invisible yet omnipresent. Even wartime looting becomes an instrument of wealth. The Reich systematically confiscates valuables from occupied territories, gold reserves from banks, priceless artworks from private collections, and industrial assets from conquered nations. While much of this wealth is funneled into the Nazi war effort, a hidden fraction is siphoned into secret accounts, some of which are under Hitler's direct control. Monuments, estates, and luxury items vanish from cities like Paris, Warsaw, and Vienna, only to reappear in private collections in Germany or in secure Swiss vaults. The financial strategy is almost paranoid in its design. Hitler anticipates the collapse of the Reich long before it occurs. Advisors and confidants create contingency plans, coded ledgers, discrete transfers, and layers of intermediaries obscure the trail of wealth. Even as Allied forces advance in 1944 and 1945, the money is not easily traced. Some of it is converted into foreign currencies, some invested in overseas properties, and some buried in hidden caches throughout Germany and Austria. The complexity of Hitler's fortune becomes legendary. Bankers who attempt to reconstruct his holdings decades later describe labyrinthine networks of accounts, trusts, and corporate entities designed to obscure ownership. The empire of wealth is both a testament to his meticulous planning and a reflection of the corruptive power he wielded. Hitler's money is not merely cash. It is influence. It is leverage. It is a weapon in itself.
As the war reaches its climax, Hitler's personal finances are a paradoxical mixture of abundance and impermanence. Berlin, once a hub of power, is reduced to rubble. Bombs fall on the Reich chancellery and on private estates alike. Advisors and loyalists scramble to preserve the hidden wealth, moving gold, cash, and valuables to pre-designated safe locations. Swiss accounts continue to operate, but even they are at risk from the shifting alliances and the looming Allied victory. By April 1945, Hitler's personal fortune faces its greatest test. The man who once struggled for pennies now confronts the total collapse of his empire. Estates in Bavaria, Austria, and the Bavarian Alps are abandoned. Swiss accounts remain, but access is uncertain. Art collections are hidden in salt mines and castles, some already plundered by desperate officers. The meticulous financial machine begins to falter as chaos overtakes order. In the final days, as Hitler retreats to the Führer bunker, discussions of wealth are far from idle speculation. Plans for dispersing assets are hastily drawn, entrusted to a few confidants who are themselves under immense pressure. Some funds are wired abroad. Others are converted into portable assets, gold bars, foreign currency, and negotiable bonds. Even in the bunker, Hitler understands that survival is fleeting, but wealth might endure, hidden, inaccessible, yet preserved in secrecy. The story of Hitler's money is not merely a tale of accumulation. It is a story of disappearance, of assets that vanish as quickly as they are amassed. Swiss banks, secret accounts, and hidden caches transformed the fortune into a phantom empire, one that eludes even the Allied forces. Post-war investigations would reveal traces, but never the full extent. And as Berlin burns, the empire of wealth built over decades begins its final, mysterious journey into the shadows of history.
April 30th, 1945. Berlin is a city of fire and ruin. Adolf Hitler, the man who rose from obscurity and homelessness to command one of the most formidable empires in history, is dead. The Führer bunker is silent.
Outside, Soviet troops advanced through streets littered with the remnants of a once proud capital. But the question that haunts historians and treasure hunters alike is not just what happened to Hitler, it is what became of his unimaginable fortune. Even as the Third Reich collapses, evidence of hidden wealth begins to surface. Investigators uncover secret accounts, caches of gold, stolen artworks, and foreign currency stashed across Europe. Yet much of it remains elusive. Swiss banks, bound by secrecy laws and fortified vaults, hold records that are only partially accessible. Families, intermediaries, and former Nazi officials all play roles in the shadowy dispersal of assets. Some of the funds are traced. Much of it disappears into mystery. The Reichsbank itself had been a conduit for massive transfers of looted wealth, including gold from occupied territories and personal fortunes seized from Jewish families. Some of these holdings were transferred abroad, hidden behind layers of shell companies and secret accounts. Others were melted down, transformed into untraceable bullion. By the time Allied forces reached Berlin, billions had already vanished, leaving only fragments behind, clues to a financial empire that had existed parallel to the collapsing Third Reich. Hitler's Swiss connections proved particularly baffling. Accounts under pseudonyms, safe deposit boxes, and covert transfers to foreign banks make tracing the money almost impossible. Some historians believe that a significant portion of his fortune may have been secured in neutral countries, including Switzerland and even Liechtenstein, out of reach of post-war reparations and confiscation efforts. Others suggest that his wealth was systematically divided among loyalists, some of whom absconded with unimaginable sums as Germany crumbled. Meanwhile, treasure hunters and intelligence agencies launched decades-long searches. Operation Bernhard, initially a Nazi counterfeiting scheme, becomes a source of rumor and legend. Forged banknotes supposedly redirected into hidden caches. Stories circulate of gold bars buried in secret locations in Bavaria, Austrian salt mines, and even the forests of Eastern Europe. Each lead is tantalizing, yet frustratingly incomplete. The precise magnitude of Hitler's posthumous fortune may never be known.
In the post-war years, investigators uncover portions of the fortune, but the full picture remains elusive. Some Swiss accounts are frozen and later seized by Allied authorities, yielding millions in recovered assets. Looted artworks are partially restored to rightful owners, though many remain missing in private collections around the world. Rumors of hidden treasures persist, fueling speculation, conspiracy theories, and endless searches. The disappearance of Hitler's wealth is as methodical as its accumulation. It reflects the same meticulous planning, the same obsession with control that characterized his rise. Just as he built his empire of influence from nothing, he ensured that even in death, his financial legacy could evade capture. This is a story of wealth that exists in shadow, vast, secret, and haunting, intertwining with the broader tragedy of World War II. By the 21st century, historians continue to piece together fragments. Documents, bank records, testimonies, and recovered assets paint only a partial portrait. Estimates suggest that billions remain unaccounted for, some locked in Swiss vaults, some lost in European terrain, some perhaps claimed by opportunists immediately after the war. The legend of Hitler's fortune persists because the money itself became a symbol of ambition, of corruption, and of the dark ingenuity that underpinned a regime capable of unparalleled destruction. In the end, the story of Hitler's money is more than a tale of wealth. It is a mirror to history itself, a reflection of human ambition, ingenuity, greed, and secrecy. The rise from penniless artist to secret billionaire, the manipulation of systems, the cunning use of money as power, These are the threads that weave a story as gripping as any battlefield drama. And yet, much of it remains hidden, whispering through the vaults, forests, and records that survived the fall of the Third Reich. For viewers today, the legacy is both cautionary and captivating. The vanished billions of Hitler's empire are a historical puzzle, a phantom fortune that fuels imagination and research alike. They remind us that history is not just battles and treaties, it is also the quiet, meticulous accumulation of power in unexpected forms. Thank you for watching this deep dive into history. If you found this story gripping and immersive, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe for more documentaries that uncover the hidden truths of the past.